we're recording a version of the Hunt Talk Radio podcast at the same time while we're doing a Facebook Live session. At the same time, Marcus, our production director, is filming me for a YouTube segment. So this podcast is going to have a lot going on. It's going to be pretty distracting, but here's how it works. On a Facebook Live session, people get to come onto Facebook, they go live, and they just ask questions, and I answer them on the fly. So I have no idea what the topics will be, other than some people have already started asking questions, and that started yesterday. They were asking them out on Facebook. And then we just do whatever pops up, and we're going to run this for, I don't know, hour and a half. But before we get going on that, I just want to take a quick minute here and thank our partners who make the podcast possible. You guys have heard me talk about the Onyx Maps guys. Been standing right now, if you can envision this, I'm standing at my computer. I have a Vera desk where I stand all day. And I got two big monitors in front of me. I got my cell phone in front of me to do the Facebook Live session. I've got a camera to my right. And next to my all of my stuff here, what I had pulled up was my Onyx Maps beta system. They've given me the beta version of a new product they're putting out there, and let's just say I'm excited about it. I can't let all the cats out of the bag right now, but it's a lot of fun to play with. And then right now for their smartphones, they have the app called the Hunt app, and it's available out on onyxmaps.com. And if you use go to that site and use our promo code Randy16, you'll get a big discount on the Onyx Map Hunt app for your smartphone. Onyxmap.com, Hunt app. And even if you don't do the Hunt app thing, if you're old school like I've always been, you can also get the little SD chips that go on the back of your Garmin GPS. So, and then we're also thankful for the good folks at Orion Coolers who, man, they make a great cooler, and they are such big supporters of us. Everybody who goes out to our YouTube page right now and subscribes gets in a drawing where sometime in early July, maybe we'll do it on the 4th of July, I don't know, is going to get in the drawing for an Orion cooler. And we're doing a bunch more promotions with Orion coolers every month from now until the end of the year. Great folks, great product, great company. And then the other company that is so supportive of what we're doing on the podcast here is the great folks at GoHunt.com. And I use their insider service. You guys have heard me talk about it, and I talk about it because it works so well. It has everything I need in one spot, all my research. It's helpful. And they have a great promotion going on for us, for our members. If you go to the GoHunt.com and click on the Insider, which is where you really get to their service, all their research tools. The Insider has a promo code, and the promo code there is HUNTTALK, HUNTTALK. And if you go there, you're going to get a free Gerber Vital knife. And the Vital knife by Gerber is the very lightweight, replaceable scalpel blade knife that we use. So go to GoHunt.com, use the code go to GoHunt.com to Insider and use the code HUNTTALK, and you're going to get the Gerber knife. So we're about, 7 or 8 minutes away from launch here. And for the benefit of those of you on the podcast, if I sound distracted, I'm sorry. I am beyond multitasking here. But I'm just going to give you a list of some of these questions. Here's the first dozen questions that came in. I don't know if I'll get to all of them. I'll be reading the ones that come in on the Facebook Live feed also. But here's some that have already been posted. I heard a great podcast with Shane Mahoney about getting rid of the word trophy. I'm a hunter and I will take 1 to 2 cows every year, but everything you see or hear is getting mature bull. I get that. But if we truly want to get rid of the term trophy hunting, we need to start talking about and seeing that taking cows is fantastic. Thank you. So we'll probably get into that. And the next one is, could you explain for the people listening and others your interpretation of conservation as opposed to preservation and how this affects the hunting community? Wow, I've been doing this, I think we're on the 6th presentation I've been doing with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and it's called Real Conservation Matters. And my segment of the presentation is about conservation versus environmentalism. And we talked about that on some of the previous podcasts. I think when I had Tony Schunen and Keith Balford from Boone and Crockett Club, I think when I had them on the podcast, we got into that. And so I think I might get onto that topic today. Another person wants me to do videos about cow hunting for beginners. Another person says, how come you never talk about hunting in Washington State or film any of your shows here? I can get into that. I don't like to be a downer on any single state other than Washington. The costs are high. The opportunity for most of us who travel as non-resident elk hunters or non-resident deer hunters, Washington's pretty low on the list just because the cost, the season dates, the restrictions, and the crowding. So it's not quite the proposition that other states offer. Let's see. Since you live in Montana and have the pulse of the state with regards to elk and deer seasons, what is it about Montana that you think has played the biggest part of these seasons being able to be extended with any weapons during these seasons? This is a really good question, and that's what I'm going to get to. So there's, 7 more questions, but right now I'm going to turn on the feed for the Facebook Live folks. We're recording this on June 23rd. Which is a Thursday night at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. Oh, and for those of you, here's a plug for 2% for conservation. If you've not heard about 2% for conservation, it's right here on the side of my Nalgene bottle. And I would suggest anyone who is interested in showing the world what commitment they have to conservation, this would be a really good thing for them to support, 2% for conservation. So let's see, I'm getting ready to hit the video button here for Facebook. Describe your live video. I'm going to say Montana elk hunt because this Facebook Live session is all about this Montana elk hunt that is going to be a YouTube exclusive. Let's see, that YouTube exclusive starts airing on Monday the 27th on YouTube, and it'll be there. It says we're live. So if you go to our YouTube channel, it's going to be as live gets on Monday, June 27th, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and it'll sit out on our YouTube channel forever. So if you can't get it the day of the premiere, you can get it anytime. So I wonder if any of you out in Facebook world can hear me. I'm hoping that's the case, but I don't know. I think I'm logged into the right thing here. I better be. I better go out to my Facebook channel and sync it and make sure that my Facebook channel has me. And let's see, where is it? Trying to reconnect due to a poor connection. Okay, Jared Pierce says I can hear. Trying to reconnect due to a poor wireless connection. How can that be? Let me make sure. We got technology issues here. No, I'm good there. All right. So, loud and clear. All right, thanks, Matthew. Matthew Lane tells me he can hear me. Ryan C. Williams says we're good to go. So, what time is it? We're about 3 minutes early, but I think we're going to get ready and get going. So, cheers. Hey, folks, you like that, huh? 2% for conservation. And here's the funny part, folks. Those of you on the Facebook Live feed, You can see on my collar here, I have a mic here and I have a mic right here. Those mics are for this camera over here that's recording everything, and you'll find that out on our YouTube channel. And then down below me, I have my podcast recorder for the Hunt Talk Radio podcast. So we're recording it for that also. Ooh, someone is, let's see, trying to reconnect. Due to a poor wireless connection, your video has been paused. Consider moving. All right, I'm going to move my router, and I'm going to put that router. This is going to look kind of ugly in all of our footage and everything, but I'm moving this router so close to my telephone. Do they call it a telephone anymore, or is it a cell phone? So, let's see. Everybody, okay, I can see it now. It says we're going. So, I think my computer is still stealing some of the connection from my phone. Maybe not, but anyhow, we're going to let this rip, folks. Thanks for being here for the Facebook Live session. This is all about a Montana rifle elk hunt that you're going to see on our YouTube channel that premieres June 27th, which is Monday. Someone throws a comment up there saying telephone may be a good way to date yourself. Yeah, I'm 51 years old. When I first had a telephone, we were on a party line. So grant me a pardon here. So the whole purpose for all this is we want to answer a bunch of questions, talk about this upcoming YouTube episode. This is only going to be available on YouTube. It's going to be available we're going to make it live on YouTube. The YouTube channel is Randy Newberg Hunter. And we're going to make it live June 27th at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. So anytime after that, you can tune in, you can watch it, you can share it with your friends or whoever. But we want to talk about how that hunt worked. We want to talk about some of the things that happened during that hunt. We're going to talk a little bit about this is our strategy with YouTube, because we're also going to have a week later on June 3rd, you're going to see another elk hunt that is a premiere, but that premiere is going to be on the Sportsman channel. So now someone's cracking jokes about a rotary phone. Yeah, I had a rotary phone. Jeez, this is a hard crowd I got here. So I don't want you to forget about the fact that we are also going to be on Sportsman's channel from July through December, like we always are. And our air times this year for the quarter 3 and quarter 4 are 9 o'clock Mountain Time on Sunday night. So you're going to get a couple of really good elk hunt premieres over the course of 1 week. 2 really good hunts. One is going to be a New Mexico hunt that is on Sportsman channel. And then this one that you're going to see on the YouTube premiere is a Central Montana elk hunt. And that's the one we're going to talk about today. And that hunt has a little bit of everything in it. And I want to just kind of lay out a little bit about what you're going to see, and what you're seeing in some of the promo clips that we have out on Facebook is it's pretty frantic. And we wanted this to be, what would you say, a little raw, a little edgier, a little rougher than maybe our TV stuff. You know, TV, you always want to have the highest of high production qualities. You want it to look smooth. You want everything to be the way it should be. But in YouTube, we're trying to do it a little bit differently. And I think when you see this Montana elk hunt on YouTube, it's raw. My camera guy on that hunt was Tyler Jonerson, and Tyler is an elk hunting nut. But I'm trying to give you a little idea of when you see all this going on, as the hunter, the camera guy is behind me, and his absolute instruction is, you tell me where to move, what to do, because I'm on the elk. And I'm not going to shoot until you tell me take them, or I got them, or whatever. And so in this hunt, we see these elk, and I'm following them, and he's like, no, they've gone, which means they're out of his camera view. And then we run up the hill, we get to the edge, and I'm to the left. We committed the greatest sin in filming, where we got separated by about 5 yards. In the filming world, the camera guy and the hunter always stay in parallel to each other. That way you have the same shooting lanes. Well, we got a little bit separated. So he's off to my right, And I'm like, you on him? He's like, no, you're on the wrong one. I'm like, no, you on him? And finally the elk got tired of us and they took off running. And I'm following them in my scope, and Tyler hits me in the back. He's like, go, 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 run, run, run. And we take off running again. And, well, you'll get to see the end of it. But it was crazy. But I think this episode gives you a little feel for what our filming life is for, I don't know, trying to reconnect. How can I have a poor wireless connection? My router is like right here next to me. Folks, I'm sorry about this poor connection, but this router is just right out of the screen here. So I don't know what more I can do. But so I just wanted to in this episode, I wanted to give people a little bit of a feel of what we do, how it unfolds, how it works for us, kind of on a weekly basis when we're out there filming. So with that, I'm going to get to some of your questions. One of them I already saw scroll through here. Hey, the folks from Nissan Land are watching. Hey, Patrick, how are you? But I'm going to scroll through a bunch of questions that were put out on Facebook, but I just saw one scroll by that said, what caliber do you use? And when we do this YouTube episode, we have an ancillary episode that will be linked to the elk hunt that goes into caliber selection. But for those of you kind enough to join us tonight, I'm just going to tell you, if I'm going elk hunting, you're just about always going to see me carrying a 308 Win. And some people say, well, man, that's a pretty small caliber for elk. Nope, not for me. A lot of times you'll see that when we have a guest hunter, because we try to have different calibers, I or the guest hunter will have a 300 Win mag, and the other will have a 300 or a 308 Win. When I use a 308, for me, bullet construction and bullet expansion is absolutely paramount. And that's why I use the E-tip bullet that Nosler makes. That's the biggest bullet, or not the biggest, but the most common bullet I'm using in my 308. Sometimes I'm using the partition in my 308. In my 300 Win mag, I'm just about always using AccuBonds. Sometimes I'll crank down to a 7mm 08, or I'll crank down to a 270. And in those, I'll also use AccuBonds. I'll use 130 grain AccuBond in my 270. In my 7mm 08, I'll use 140 grain AccuBond. So, man, I can't believe how many people are online here. So I'm going to get into some of these questions you guys have, and I'm going to try relate a few of these to the Montana elk episode that you're going to see on Monday. And one of these was a really good question. Brent Daly sent in a question. It says, since you live in Montana and have the pulse of the state with regards to the elk and deer seasons, what is it about Montana that I think has played the biggest part in these seasons being able to be such long seasons, any weapon during this season? And then he goes on to say, Idaho used to be this way as I grew up, but now, of course, it's chopped up all over, mostly with draw hunts. What can other states learn from Montana's wildlife plans, be able to move more towards this season and harvest? Or is it just a matter of lower population of hunters and more area to hunt? It might be a combination of all those, but one thing that's pretty remarkable, when I moved to Montana in 1991, I think it was the next year or the year after, 92 or 93, our Fish, Wildlife, and Parks went and had these open houses across the state. And at that time, motorized travel was starting, trying to reconnect. Just when I get into the great part of my answer, it disconnects. So I'm going to start that over. So in 92 or 93, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks went into most of the communities, not all, but a lot of the bigger communities, and said, look, we want to find out what hunters think, because motorized travel is starting to become a big issue. It's affecting elk vulnerability. We want your input. Do you want longer seasons or shorter seasons? And it was kind of pitched to us like this. All right, with motorized travel, if you want to continue to have long seasons, we're going to have to restrict some of that either temporarily, seasonally, or maybe permanently. Or if you want to keep motorized travel growing at the way it is, expect that pretty soon we're going to have to go to limited season, shorter season, choose your weapon, mostly limited entry draw. And I remember sitting at the meeting in Bozeman, And everyone's looking around like, what? You want me to give up my 6 weeks of archery and my 5 weeks of rifle? Not a chance. Put some gates on, close some roads. We don't care. And so I don't know if that's the full answer to the question that Brent asked, but I think because Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks has worked over the last 25 years, hand in glove with the Forest Service, the BLM, State Lands Board, to manage how much pressure hunters can put on through motorized access, it's allowed for longer seasons. Yeah, our success rates are lower because of that, but everyone's wanting more opportunity or days of field, even if it means, all right, we got to walk further, we got to take them out on our back or horses or whatever. So that's one of the really good questions that came in here. I don't know if that answers it, but it's the answer I'm going with today. So Nathaniel Melton asks, what do you think is the best state to harvest a bull for someone from the Midwest with limited experience? If I could send you anywhere in the West, I'd send you to Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, or Arizona, but the odds of drawing one of those tags are really slim. So if you're from the Midwest, you're probably going to be looking at Montana, Wyoming, or Colorado. There are just so many options out there. It's really hard to narrow it down. I've hunted Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado since they're closest to the Midwest. I'm going to focus on those. If I was archery hunting and I wanted to go this year, I would pick Montana. And the reason I'd pick Montana is the western half of the state of Montana is mostly public. The eastern half is mostly private, and it switches from private to public as you go west. Well, in our valleys, even in the mountainous country where most of the elk are, the low country is private land. The high country is public land. Well, where are the elk in archery season? They're up in the high country. So if you're an archer, it's a no-brainer you'd come to Montana. If you're a rifle hunter, maybe think about Colorado over Montana. And the reason I say that is because when hunting pressure and weather push those elk lower, then access and private land becomes more of a challenge. So that's why to answer that question, it's kind of, all right, what do you want to do, archery, or do you want to do rifle? That would alter how I answer that question. Wyoming is a great state. I'm lucky I've been able to hunt elk there, I think 5 times. And if you can draw a tag there, and it's easier to draw a tag in Wyoming than it is some of the other limited entry tags. And if you want to drive through all of the elk hunting opportunity in Montana to go even further west, you could go to Idaho. Idaho has over-the-counter tags just like Colorado does. So, all right, let's see this question. I know how much you love to hunt elk. My love is mule deer. My question is, what mule deer hunt would... All right, we lost our connection again. This is frustrating. I'm not sure what it is. CenturyLink. I don't get any money from CenturyLink, but I'm telling you, that's who my internet provider is, so send them an email. So this person said, I know how much you love to hunt elk. My love is mule deer. My question is, what mule deer hunt would cause you to forego a coveted elk tag in the rut? Fortunately, when it's really good mule deer hunting, there's usually not really good... or it's not the peak of the elk rut and the peak of the mule deer rut don't coincide. So practically I don't have to be confronted with that problem. But one year I had the Arizona Strip mule deer tag. That's a November hunt. So it didn't really interfere with any of my rut elk hunting. But if it did, I would have went to the Arizona Strip and hunted mule deer. And down in this drawer down here underneath, that Arizona Strip mule deer tag is still intact. And I know some of you are saying, what? How could you go to the Arizona Strip and not kill a deer? I had lots of chances. It's a once in a lifetime event, and I didn't see the deer I wanted to. So, let's see. Oh boy, there's so many questions coming through here. All right. I'm going to ask this one here. Interested in your take on being exceptionally proficient with one weapon method, rifle, archery, or muzzleloader, versus being competent in all 3. Some would say I'm incompetent in all three, so I'm not sure if I should answer this question, but is the time and effort required to be able to harvest ethically with multiple options worth it to expand the opportunities to hunt every fall? That's kind of a personal judgment question. I'll just tell you my personal opinion is, yeah, it's worth it. Yeah, and I have an archery range right that way. And so I'm able to shoot in my yard all day long anytime I want, so that's great. And I have one of the best archery or rifle ranges in Montana, just not too far here from Bozeman. So for me, it's worth the effort to try to be proficient at both. I end up not doing any muzzleloader hunts. I have a muzzleloader, but it's not something I'm very good at. Probably for the reason that I've only hunted with that muzzleloader 3 times, and because of the fact I don't use it much. All right, let's see here. How do you think the land transfer movement today compares to the sagebrush rebellion of the 1980s? What lessons did the pro-transfer people appear to learn from getting their butts handed to them? And have we pro-land people learn from that movement as to how it shapes our tactics? So Dan is referring to this idea that we should transfer all of the lands to the states. The federal lands, I mean BLM and Forest Service. It's called state transfer. It's an idea that some of the fringe groups are promoting. And I was going to college in Nevada when the Sagebrush Rebellion was going on in Nevada. And that's that whole Nevada Sagebrush Rebellion thing. When they said our goal is to get rid of the public lands, it blew up on them. So they kind of crawled in the hole for about 20 years. Now, in the last 10 years, they've emerged with this idea of, oh, let's call it state transfer. Let's give it to the states. The states can't afford it. They'll have to sell it, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know that anything's been learned by one or the other. I'd say they're more organized. They're better financed. They've massaged their message a little better so that they're trying to call it something different than sell the public lands, but that's really what it is. And, you know, we just got to be vigilant about it. And we have a whole YouTube series out there. If you go to our public land playlist on YouTube, there's all kinds of stuff. I think we've done 16 videos. We've loaded up 6 of them already. So I hope you'd share those with people. All right, Dan from Idaho. You often, you referenced Idaho's over-the-counter opportunities often. They are plentiful, but I haven't seen you do any hunts here. Is there a singular reason behind that? Yes, there's a singular reason behind it because Idaho still hasn't released their elk and deer results. So what is it? June 23rd? Every other state has told us about their elk, deer, antelope, sheep, moose, goat. And when I'm planning a TV show, I got to have 10 to 12 hunts a year. And I can't bank on Idaho giving me a tag. And I know a lot of people would say, well, all right, let's just come here and do over the counter. And I get that. But my strategy, and I don't know if you can see this, I'm going to show you. There's 2 big whiteboards over my shoulder there. Those whiteboards that you see there, that's the planning that goes into each season. And we post that whiteboard activity out on our Hunt Talk website. And so I'm trying to do 10 to 12 hunts. So I'm applying every limited tag I can get throughout the West. Me and some close friends and a couple other people who are regulars that we've had on the show. And very often we get to this point, just like this year, and we've got the tags we need. So we're not going to come to Idaho, as great as the hunting is, on an over-the-counter tag just for the sake of going there when we've got a bunch of limited entry tags that have taken us maybe a couple years to draw. So I know that might not be the answer you want to hear, Dan, but I can tell you this. When you do announce your results next week, if I am so lucky as to draw my limited entry rifle mule deer tag, or I'm so lucky as to draw my limited entry December, right there means I'm down to about 3, anyone who knows Idaho knows, all right, he's applying in one of these 3 units. If I draw my December elk tag, I'm going to be there. So glad All right, he just said, thanks, that makes sense. All right. So let's see, someone asked me about the corner crossing issue. And rather than get into a big deal of it here, it's kind of like, I'll just give a quick explanation. If you looked at a checkerboard and you got to stay on red or you got to stay on black, assume that red is public and black is private. You kind of have to cross diagonally at the corners of where these meet. And you're saying, all right, I'll step from one piece of public to another piece of public. We get into this, when you see the episode air on Monday, at the end there's a bunch of links where you can click on other episodes we've created to support this elk hunt in Montana. And one of those is a map skills, we're calling it, and it gets into corner crossing. And it talks about it, what it really represents, why it's such a gray, fuzzy area right now. And I don't have the answer to corner crossing as to where you can do it, where you can't do it, because every state, every jurisdiction is a little different. But go and watch that video on Monday night or anytime after that. And I think it'll give you a pretty good feel about how the whole corner crossing thing is being looked at in the West. And if you can, like I said, just think of it as a checkerboard. And you're hopping from black to black or red to red, and comes with a whole set of complications. Make sure you've done your research and homework before you decide to do it. So, let's see. What else we have here? You guys are full of questions. I'm not able to read them as fast as they're going across the screen. That's the problem. All right. How come you never talk about hunting in Washington State or film any of your shows here? Again, it's kind of like the Idaho answer that I gave. It's just for traveling non-resident hunters. The Washington, just when you look at cost, opportunity, hunting pressure, season dates, most non-residents are going to look at Washington and say, you know what, there are better options than Washington. So that's why we don't end up there. We try to focus on the states where most of the traveling non-resident hunting activity goes to. And I mean, I'm sure that's not the answer you wanted to hear, but it is the answer of why we do it that way. All right, Harry Roberts says, can you explain for the people listening and others your interpretation of conservation as opposed to preservation and how this affects the hunting community? So you might be referring to a podcast that we did with Tony Schunan and Keith Balford from the Boone and Crockett Club. And we got into this discussion of conservation is mostly, it's what we as hunters kind of subscribe to. It's accounting for the fact that humans live on this landscape. It's wise use rather than no use. Gifford Pinchot, who was the father of the U.S. Forest Service, said it best when he said conservation is the greatest good for the greatest number of people for the longest period of time. And in that he incorporates, okay, the greatest good, meaning it's a resource, we should use it. It incorporates that, hey, people are part of this equation. It's not a just go and stand and watch it. And he says for the greatest or for the longest period of time, which means we're thinking about this over a long horizon. Like, think about when he was starting the Forest Service a little over 100 years ago. It's always, in our hunting/conservation world, it's always been, we look generations ahead, not just a year ahead. And then as a part of a project I'm doing for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, I've been doing seminars on this topic. And one of the things that we've been comparing conservation to is environmentalism. And I'm not making a statement of one or the other. You're going to obviously gather that I adhere to the doctrine or the belief of conservationism versus environmentalism. But a lot of scholars have written about the history of the environmental movement. And they talk about some of the features, and they compare environmentalism to conservation. And these PhD types who've written on it have some pretty, what I would call interesting but very obvious differences. And I talked about how conservation is wise use. A lot of these scholars would say environmentalism is no use or would say man is not part of the equation, where conservation says man is part of the equation. The tools that we use in the hunting world, we usually are talking about game management plans, reintroduction plans, all this stuff. They will say that, the scholars will say that environmentalism is mostly about social tools such as politics, litigation, stuff like that. So the mechanisms to create change in each are slightly different. So there's definitely a lot of difference between this idea of no use / preservation and what we describe or adhere to, for the most part, as conservation. Conservation includes the human dynamic. Conservation believes that this is an active landscape. And part of the reason that I subscribe to conservation is not just because I'm a hunter, but I look at the fact that we got 7 billion people on this planet. We've got 300 plus million just in the United States. How do, where I live right here in Montana, we have pushed elk from their historical range of the valleys and the prairies. We've pushed them to marginal habitats of mountains and foothills. Is it really practical to think that these elk and this whole system, as disrupted as it is with highways and bridges and cities and airports and railroad tracks and subdivisions and all this, that somehow that thing's just going to balance itself now that we've disrupted the landscape to that degree? I don't think so. I think it's very impractical to think that this is some sort of fantasy world where it's all going to reach some happy balance. Trying to reconnect. So that's why I'm a subscriber to the idea of conservation, and I really struggle seeing the whole notion of environmentalism, even though environmentalism, as they call it, modern day environmentalism, has a lot of roots in the conservation world. And when you look at a lot of the environmental legislation, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, a whole bunch of things like that, a lot of that was supported and advocated and lobbied for by the conservation world back in the late 60s, early 70s. And now it's kind of taken some pretty divergent paths. But anyhow, I don't know if that answers Harry's question, but that's the answer Randy's going with today. So, all right, let's see. We have a question here. Patrick, when pursuing with archery equipment, early September or late September in the high country? I like late September, even though some would say, oh, the rut's kind of waning and passing at that point. I just like being there when the weather's a little cooler. I've found that elk rut longer than probably a lot of people think. So if you give me a bow and say, all right, you got to pick your week in September, I'm picking the last week in September, and that's when I'm going to go. Some states have pretty narrow seasons. Like this year, myself and Corey Jacobson from elk101.com, we drew one of the Healy units down in New Mexico, and you don't get to pick when you're going because New Mexico has these shorter seasons. So we're going during the season that we drew. All right, what is your approach for glassing to find your quarry? For me, that's probably going to be a little different than it is for most hunters, because we have, and again, this is how TV complicates it. And I know some of you are going to say, boy, I'm glad I don't do a TV show. But our goal in the TV show is that we want to have 5 to 10 seconds of pre-focused footage, or pre-shot focused footage is a better way to say it. So we like to glass the animal from afar. We'll get out the big lenses. We'll do whatever we can to get footage from afar. And then as we start moving in, we're going to stop and we're going to try to get some footage as we're moving in. And then, dang it, trying to reconnect. This is like the 4th time it's dropped it. I have no idea what's dropping on this connection. So once we get close, then all bets are off. It's just me and the cameraman trying to figure out who's doing what, who's on first, and how we pull it off. So that's a little bit different for my glassing than it probably would be for yours. But I think I talked about this in the podcast 2 podcasts ago when I talk about how I have my evening slopes and my morning slopes, and I always like to glass with the sun at my back. And so even if it's not directly at my back, it'll be, a quartering angle, whatever. And sometimes I end up having to glass crossways to the sun just for my morning slope or evening slope. So, Nicole, words of wisdom for a first-time elk hunter. Whew. Boy, you think I'd have some wisdom because, and I've said this in some podcasts, it took me 6 years. I hunted 6 seasons before I killed my first elk. I mean, I moved here from Minnesota. I'm a whitetail hunter. I'm thinking, all right, elk are going to worry about every little noise I make. No, if there was a problem or a stupid thing you could do elk hunting, I did it. It just, so what's the best advice I could give a first-time elk hunter? It'd probably be the same advice I give to people who come to my seminars and have been on many elk hunts. And that would be spend more time finding where the elk are. And by that I mean where they're going to be at the season of the year you're hunting. So I'm going to use an example. November in Montana is late season. In the late season, the elk are going to be in this sanctuary mode. They're trying to get away from people. The elk saying, I just have to survive another season. So they are going to be in the roughest, ugliest, dirtiest, nastiest places you can find. Go look for bulls there. Whereas if you were hunting the September season, well, they're looking for cows. So go find the cows and don't worry about all this sanctuary stuff. So my point of that is you can't kill an elk that is not there. So if you're hunting someplace, kind of like fishing. If you're fishing in your bathtub, there aren't any fish there, you aren't going to catch a fish. If you are hunting someplace where there aren't any elk, you aren't going to kill one. So learn the biology and ecology of elk. Learn what their needs are. And we go through this out on our YouTube channel. We have this whole series of elk talk videos. The playlist is called Elk Talk. And we get into this system about why we look in certain places based on the time of year we're hunting. So that's probably my best advice to a new elk hunter is don't do what I did. Don't just randomly walk around in the woods. Know what the elk needs at the season and the time of year you're hunting, and then go and look for that elk in the places where he will find those needs. So let's see. Dave, I've been emailing Corey after taking his class. And the unit was my first choice as a resident. Hey, Corey, don't be telling these people where we're going. We'll never draw it again. All right, here's a bunch more questions coming via email. All right, this one is on the podcast we released today. Do you have any Roosevelt elk hunts planned? Do I have any planned? No, but is it on my list? It's like the highest thing on my list. Last year I crossed off the Alaska Sitka blacktail thing off my list. And now, after we reconnect, I'll answer this question. So, back to the question. Is Roosevelt elk on my list? It is so far up my list, I can't even tell you how far it is up my list. But the downside that everyone tells me is the public land self-guided Roosevelt elk hunts are really hard to film because it's so thick, so ugly, so nasty that the vegetation is going to make it very frustrating to get footage. So I'm trying to sort that out. But yes, there's no doubt that Roosevelt elk hunts are on my list. When it'll happen, I don't know, but I'm going to try. John, please talk about the word trophy. Television and other media mostly talk about killing mature bulls and how taking cows is great for the freezer and how hunting cows is different than hunting mature bulls. Couple thoughts there after I take a drink. So the word trophy hunting, I would ask, go listen to the most recent, I think it was podcast episode 31 with Shane Mahoney and Keith Balford. Shane gets into a really good discussion about why we should just get rid of these tags of meat hunter versus trophy hunter versus whatever. Shane is like a super smart guy. I think he answers that really, really well. When we start hanging tags on the type of hunting we do, it does us no good, and it just kind of splits our community, and it gives everyone else the opportunity to say, well, which one of those tags will be most effective in my argument today? And as we know, they often use trophy hunting. TV and media mostly talk about killing mature bulls. Yeah, They do. If you watch our show, you'll know that pretty much any bull that shows up is in trouble. And that's just because our story is about self-guided public land hunting, about the food, the experience, everything else. So I'm relieved of that pressure of thinking I have to kill the biggest one every time. And then about how taking cows is great for the freezer. That's a no-brainer. And that's the beauty of why the more elk we have, the greater surplus we have, both bulls and cows, and why I'm such a huge advocate for all the work that the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation does. Let's see. What is your favorite? Oh, I missed that one. It's something about my favorite cut of elk meat, my first choice. It's definitely the tenderloins. When an elk gets taken, first thing that comes is the tenderloins. And I keep them in one big chunk, and I grill them. And what is it? Greg, what's your company? Dog Day Spice Rubs, I think it is. Dog Days. I use Greg Rodriguez's spice rubs on this tenderloin, and I grill it. And as it's getting done, I'm just standing there cutting off the piece that's perfectly done, and oh man, it's great. But all elk is good. I've never had a bad piece of elk meat. So sometimes it's a little tougher, but flavor-wise, I've never had a bad piece. Tristan, do you ever hunt off camera just to have fun and tip over some meat? I do hunt off camera. When my son comes home for Christmas breaks from college, he is a fanatic when it comes to waterfowl hunting. And we go make a lot of, how would I say it? We burn a lot of gunpowder because sometimes we don't hit those ducks when they're coming over our heads real fast. But I do some hunting that is just quote unquote fun, but that's all local hunting. Any of my traveling hunting, my commitment to my wife is that if I'm gonna be gone for a week and it's hunting, I'm gonna be filming. It's only reasonable for all that poor woman puts up with. Trust me, if any of you have a way to nominate someone for sainthood, would you nominate Kim Newberg? Because she deserves it. And no, honey, I'm not just saying that. Let's see. How ready are you to hunt this year? I wonder if I should lie or tell the truth. This year's been a bad year for me. A lot of you have seen an episode back at, when was it? Season 1 of Fresh Tracks. And if you go back to our YouTube channel and look up Season 1 of Fresh Tracks, there was an elk hunt in Nevada, or an archery mule deer hunt in Nevada, where a lot of people really came to realize, oh man, Randy's dealing with a pretty serious health issue. And for the last 11, 12 years, they diagnosed that I'm missing the plumbing that goes into my liver. So a liver is kind of this crescent-shaped organ, and there's a vein that comes in the bottom called the portal vein. I got a blood clot that plugged that vein. So I only get about 30% of the blood flow to my liver that you get. The other 70% just just recirculates in my body. So I have some good days, I have some bad days, and this winter was probably one of the worst winters I've had in a long time, which is my way of answering the question, how ready am I to hunt this year? I had to shut down and just rest, so I'm not in the shape I feel like I should be. Usually by now, I'm really able to get with it. But I've got some great tags. I've still got 2 months to kind of get in shape. You know, I've been hiking. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like I've been sitting on my butt, but it's been a tough year. And I'm thankful that the last 6 weeks, I'm feeling like I'm climbing back out of that. But how ready am I to hunt this year? Mentally, I'm ready. Physically, my wife would probably answer this differently than I just answered it. She'd probably say, he's quitting this TV show. He's quitting that podcast. He's going to kill himself. That goes back to having the most wonderful wife in the world, who is always worried about me, always making sure that I'm taking care of myself, cooking these wonderful meals because I'm on this really weird restricted diet. So let's see. Jim, will we ever see some wild game field care and or cooking on your show? Well, TV sometimes doesn't really like that. There's some production guidelines about how you can do it. Cooking I'm not going to do because I have some really great friends, the folks over at Meat Eater and Hank Shaw. Those folks have the cooking thing nailed. I'm not going to try to piggyback on them. They really got it dialed in. I love how I cook. I like the meals that we have, but I'm not going to make a TV episode about it. As far as wild game care, if you go out to our YouTube channel right now, there's a video out there called The Gutless Method, and it's how we take care of animals out in the field. And the old video that's out there is all about how we do it with a whitetail. And we did it with a whitetail because there's a lot of people who may not live in elk country, but they want to know how to do it. So by having a whitetail, they could kind of practice at home, so when they came out west, they'd know how to do it with an elk. We're producing one right now that's going to be up in the next few weeks that is all about elk. Actually, the elk that you are going to see on the Monday night episode on YouTube, that one we did the full sequence of a gutless method on that elk to show you how we could do the same thing with an elk. Let's see. Do I foresee a grizzly hunt if delisted? I see a lot of lawsuits when the grizzly gets delisted. The 3 states, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, have already said that state control, which means, what delisting means is we're giving management authority back to the states. So under state management authority, they're saying, yes, very limited hunting would be part of it. So if ever they could get through the lawsuits and then we get state control, there might be grizzly hunting. But I wouldn't run out and block out vacation time right now thinking that you're going to get the chance to do that. So let's see. Someone says, drew an archery quality bull tag for Washington. We'll be packing in on foot. What's in your pack? Boy, that would take a long time, but we have a series of videos out on our YouTube channel, and they're called the bag dump videos. It's kind of what we have as our base package no matter where we go. And then on top of that, we add certain things based on, is it an early season hunt, a late season hunt? Is it a rifle hunt? Is it an archery hunt? So rather than go into all that right here, I would suggest maybe go out and watch that bag dump video. And it's really, I think anyhow, a good explanation of how we approach it. All right, I just got, a message just came across here. I got to put in a plug here. Larry Stickler, it says, thanks for setting me up, New Hab. That guy, Larry Stickler, is my uncle. You've seen him on many episodes, Uncle Larry. And if I don't find a way to get him a tag so he can come hunting with me again, I'm going to have to figure something out. So this is just a family story and a camera story. So you're going to get a kick out of this. Larry was a logger back in northern Minnesota in the little town we grew up. He is in my mom's family of 6 brothers and 2 girls. He's the one right older than my mom. So him and a couple of his brothers were kind of my adult supervision when my parents got divorced. I'll just say that, Larry. So I'm setting you up big time. You spoke up, so you're going to pay for this here. So the first time we have Larry on camera is, if you go to season 1 of On Your Own Adventures, it's a Wyoming elk hunt in the Bighorn Mountains. And my camera guys come to me and they say, Randy, what's the deal with Larry? I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I said, well, every time he starts into a sentence, he stops. And any of you who grew up in a small little logging town know that colorful adult language is kind of the media by which people communicate. So Larry's getting all excited and talking to the camera, and whenever he would realize he's about ready to drop a word that wouldn't be allowed on TV, he stops. So the camera crew is like, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, just let him say what he's going to say and we'll edit it out or we'll bleep it out or whatever. So Anyhow, Larry, that's what you get for showing up on a Facebook Live segment. And you and I are going elk hunting in Wyoming next year. Well, I'm not. You're going elk hunting because you've got max points. I don't. And anyhow, folks, just a funny little story about my upbringing in this really small little logging town in northern Minnesota. Let's see. Boy, I've got all kinds of them here. JR wants me to come to California and hunt wild pigs. Hey, JR, that might not be too hard to get me to do that. One of the things I'm doing this year, I'm going to Arizona and I'm doing an over-the-counter archery mule deer hunt. And if you want to figure out how to do that, go to the gohunt.com website. Brady has written all these really cool articles about over-the-counter archery mule deer in Arizona. So when it's 10 below here in Montana, I'm going to be down there smiling because I'm going to have my bow in my hand. I'm chasing mule deer over the counter. I mean, I already buy a license when I go there or when I apply for deer, elk, and antelope down there. I may as well go there and get some value out of that. So, let's see, a whole bunch of them here. What? All right. Okay. Some of these that are coming on email are also ones that I've addressed. Okay. Here's one. Bucky Batts. How do you find out which roads are legal to travel in your unit to hunt? That's a very good question, and we just did a segment on that yesterday, and it's going to get released. Again, I hate to keep saying everything's a part of this elk hunt that comes out on Monday, but so much of it is. Because every time we air an elk hunt that's on public land that has this public-private interface thing, the property issues and access are always an issue, we get all these kind of questions. So we're adding this to part of it. And in the map reading segment that will be part of this episode next week, we get into that. And I wish I could tell you it was an easy answer. Because a lot of times, one road might drive through the Forest Service, go on to private, get back to the Forest Service, and because the county or the Forest Service has an easement across the private, you can stay on that road and go across the private. Then you might find a road 4 miles away where it hits the Forest Service boundary with the private, and there's a gate and you can't go. And the reason that is because the Forest Service or the county or whoever does not have an easement there. So the reason that you can go across one segment that crosses private is because the county has an easement or the Forest Service has an easement. And the reason you can't go in some other instances is because they don't have an easement. So it's really not a cut and dried thing. I always tell people, go to the county courthouse or get a Forest Service map. Usually a travel map from the Forest Service will lay all this out and get everything that you need. And even at that, sometimes there are private easements or easements across private land that are not on your map, not anywhere. And it's unfortunately a little bit of a insider's game where the locals have the inside scoop on that. So I hope that answers. It's not a great answer, but it's the best answer I know. I don't want to tell you that there's some absolute black and white, all rule, this rule applies everywhere, because it really doesn't work that way. All right. Do you only go for quality bull tags, or do you go after any cows also? I saw the gutless method video you did on whitetail. It was great. Plan on using it. You know what? I'll hunt elk anywhere I can go, and I will hunt mature bulls, spikes, cows. Doesn't matter. For me, when it really comes down to it, hunting is about food. Fortunately, the way we do the TV show and all the states we apply in, I end up with a lot of bull tags. And so that's usually what you see on the show. There have been shows where I've been walking around with a bull tag and a cow tag, and if I would have seen, excuse me. So in those hunts where I'm walking around with a bull tag and a cow tag, if I would have seen a cow, I would have dumped a cow. For me, I don't make that big of a distinction. Yeah, I get excited, and And I'll admit every day that if there's two bulls standing there, a little raghorn and a big 6x6, I'm going to shoot the 6x6. It's just how we are. So let's see. I don't know if that answers the question. Someone's asking me what I like best about elk hunting in New Mexico. Well, I like elk hunting in New Mexico and Arizona and Colorado and Utah and Montana and Wyoming. I really like hunting any of them. And so it'd be hard for me to get into a lot of detail about what I like about New Mexico. One of the great things about New Mexico is that there's a lot of public land. Where your elk are, there's ample public land where most of those elk are. The downside is, for guys like me, who's a self-guided non-resident, only 6% of the tags get allocated to the self-guided non-resident. So it's hard to, at times, draw a tag there. So let's see. I'm just an average Joe truck driver. No, you're an average Allen truck driver, according to your name. An elk hunt would be a once in a lifetime for me because of expense. Should I spend the money and take a chance, or is it out of my league? No. Save your money. I tell people this. When I grew up in northern Minnesota, I was under the misconception that elk hunting was strictly a rich man's game. As a teenager, I wanted to hunt elk, but I didn't even dare dream that someday I would be able to hunt elk because I didn't know how accessible it was. I didn't realize there was all this public land. I didn't realize that you could just go do it if you acquired a tag, and that some of the states have leftover tags or over-the-counter tags. So Alan, do not give up on your dream of elk hunting. I did an article for Bugle magazine, and I think it's out on our website, also out on the Hunt Talk forum. Go to hunttalk.com, and if you search it, I think I said that you could go elk hunting if you split it with you and your buddies. You could do it for close to $1,000. And yeah, $1,000 is still some money. And since I wrote that article, prices have gone up of gas and other things, of tag prices. So maybe it's now a $1,500 expense. Don't give up on that. I pinch myself to think that I get to hunt elk as much as I do on public lands, do all these great things. Whereas when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, even a young adult, I thought, just like you, I thought this was a rich man's game. I am not a rich man, trust me. And as long as I keep doing TV, I'll be less rich every year that I do TV. My wife says that the TV show is the funnest job I ever bought. So think about that. When she says it's the funnest job we ever bought, most jobs pay. But Alan, please don't give up on that idea. Let's see. Please touch on archery shot placement for the average on elk. Well, I'm not the world's greatest archer. I tell people that. You know, I grew up as a rifle hunter. I wish I would have got into archery early in my life, but I've been very lucky to get some really good archery hunts, both for elk and other species. And I don't care if we're talking elk, antelope, mule deer, whitetails. For me, I want that broadside shot. I want that complete penetration. I want, as a lot of people call it, double lung. I want an entrance wound and I want an exit wound. And the reason being is, in that instance, you're going to have that much more blood on the ground. And if it's a quartering away shot, I'll take that. Quartering on, no, I'm not going to take that. There's some guys at close range will take the frontal shot. I'm fine with that because of how lethal it is, but know that it's a very small target. Very small target. So if it's out there very far, or the angle isn't perfect dead on, I would think twice about the front on shot. Corey Jacobson, out on his website, he has a big discussion about that front thoracic shot. So what are my thoughts on more aggressive predator management? Well, I did a wolf hunt. I think I did the first, and maybe since then, one of the few wolf hunts ever filmed in the lower 48. So I like hunting wolves. But I grew up with wolves in Minnesota, where I grew up, and then I've been living with them here in Montana. And I kind of have this mixed relationship with wolves. I I don't see them as the Little Red Riding Hood. I'm not worried about them eating the kids out at the playground. They eat some elk, they eat some deer. I accept that as part of being a hunter. We say we're conservationists. And if you're a conservationist, you want all species on the landscape. And I'll argue any hunter to the ends of time that if we are going to be true to our word about being conservationists, we better make room for every species. And not just the ones we hunt, not just predator and prey, but songbirds, muskrats, snakes, owls, whatever. So I have a hard time buying into this. The wolf is all of our problem. I don't go there. And a lot of people call me a wolf hippie because of that. But I hunt them. I also don't subscribe to the theory that they shouldn't be managed. There's a biologist who's been doing a lot of wolf studies and wolf elk studies in the greater Yellowstone region. And if you got the May edition of National Geographic, you saw that they did the entire magazine about Yellowstone. And Dr. Middleton is this PhD. He's the guy doing the research. And they asked him a question, something to the effect of what you just asked me, but kind of, how are wolves and elk interacting on the landscape? Have wolves been this great savior to this balancing effect, whatever you want to call it? And he had a great comment. I think he said, well, it's okay that they're here, but there are not rainbows coming out their asses everywhere. In other words, he's very aware that this whole idea that wolves are the savior of ecosystems, that they're going to balance everything, that's a bunch of BS. I don't subscribe to that theory either. All the studies you read about killing coyotes, about whatever, it's got very marginal effectiveness if you believe the studies, and I do believe those studies. It might have short-term effects. And if you're willing to do it all the time, year after year after year after year, it might have effects that you call long-term, but it's also a long-term cost. All of the data shows our money, our effort, and our policy is we get a greater return on investing in habitat, in conservation, in landscape improvement. Those are the things that make the bigger difference. And I get that everyone wants to blame it on the wolf or the whatever. But I've lived it, seen it, and some of the barstool stories I hear about wolves, about grizzly bears, I don't buy it. The data doesn't support it. My personal observations don't support it. But they have an effect. I mean, anyone who'd stand here and argue that they don't have an effect and that they aren't eating some of the elk and deer would be a crazy fool. But I'm going to hunt them every chance I get. I mean, in the wintertime, that's what I'm doing. I'm hunting wolves. Unfortunately, I must not be very good at it because in 4 years of hunting them, we've only had 3 encounters where we've got shots at wolves. But they're tough animals, smart animals. All right, let's see. Where does my extra meat go? I get asked that a lot because you can see at the end of every episode, we try to show that we're doing this gutless method, that we're packing the meat out, because we want people to understand this is about food. So where does all this extra meat go? After I fill my freezer to what I need, camera guys get dibs on anything. A lot of times we end up with people who have, they might live in the local area and they've came out and better get a drink while it's... Sorry about the pauses on the podcast recording. I'm waiting for the reconnection on the Facebook Live. But sometimes we might have a friend in the area who's helped us on a hunt. Maybe they came out and glassed with us for a day, or if we got a bull down in a canyon like happened in Arizona one year, we ended up with, boy, we got a bad connection. This is really annoying me here. I don't know if my wife is downstairs on the computer stealing all my connection or what, but I should bang on the door. Hey, honey, you on the computer? But I don't want to get divorced over this. So. But anyhow, sometimes we have friends who who help us, and so we share meat with them. I also have a lot of elderly friends who don't hunt anymore, or they're widows and their husbands hunted at one time and they don't hunt anymore. And so I try to share as much of my wild game as I possibly can. So let's see. Another question about first-time hunter. All I could say for the first-time hunter folks is go out and watch the Elk Talk series. That doesn't answer everything, but it's going to give you as much of a head start, I think, because I sat down and said, what are all the stupid things I did in the 6 years it took me to finally kill an elk? I I made a lot of mistakes, so I've tried to put those in the Elk Talk series. So, okay, all right. I think that's one of the last questions. So, I don't know if this has been helpful. I hope it has. Like I said earlier, if you can go out, you're going to see another Facebook teaser about the episode that we did. So let me just tell you about this episode that's going to air on YouTube next Monday. So what it is central Montana has a lot of public land, landlocked by private land. In other hunts, you guys have seen me fly a helicopter into a bunch of isolated BLM land. Well, in this episode, it's a different unit, and there's some long, skinny places that you can hike in there and get out into some BLM land or Forest Service land. So you're going to see something that really chapped my hide in this episode. Me and Tyler, the camera guy, we go in, we're glassing, and the night before season, we see a group of about 30 bulls, and there is one smoker whopper bull in there, and a bunch of nice ones. And so the next morning, we're in there way before the sun comes up. Sun starts coming up. We look, and there's 3 other guys. And one of them's not wearing any blaze orange, but he's carrying a rifle. The other 2 are wearing blaze orange, carrying rifles. And they see us. We're right on the boundary. There's this little draw that comes off the private up into the public, and the elk are feeding up that draw. And we're sitting right on the fence line, and as quick as those elk might cross that fence, I'm going to let them get a little bit further up into the public, and I'm going to dump that big bull. And I mean, it is going like we wrote the script, and they're following the script. And all of a sudden, those 3 guys see us. They drop down off a different ridge into a bunch of private ground, and they head way out into this private. They pop back up on the ridge, and on the count of 3, all 3 of them, including the dude who wasn't wearing the camouflage, or wasn't wearing blaze orange, just start shooting, just boom, 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 boom. And that big bull, he's hit, he falls down, and all the other elk take off to the west. Instead of coming south onto the public, they take off to the west, and our opportunity is screwed. And some people are like, well, how do you know those people didn't have permission? Well, first of all, I know that the ranch, the bordering ranch is outfitted. And if you had permission, you'd either be there with the outfitter, or you would have come up from the bottom where there's a big road instead of coming over the mountain. And usually if you have permission, you're going to be there with your blaze orange. So very frustrating. I'm not going to use the language I would like to use about trespassers. But there's a reason. I mean, unfortunately, many times hunters earn this reputation that landowners hang on us about. You don't follow the rules, you don't this, you don't that. And in this episode, you're going to see it. Very frustrating to me. I don't know that these people didn't have permission, but I would just about bet, because I called the neighboring landowner and said, hey, there's some people out here trespassing. And they said, you know what? I think my neighbor is gone today, and I don't know if their outfitter is out there. And so no one was there to respond. Very, very frustrating. Not just frustrating for the fact that the whole whole thing fell apart for us after the scouting and research and legwork we did from our desk in the summer, making phone calls to good people like Doug, who I saw on the feed here. And then the next day, it's kind of hit the reset button and off we go. And this is a unique thing that I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say unique, but it happens a lot. So this is October 24th, 25th, something like that. And in the dark, we hear bugling. I shouldn't say we, because growing up in a logging family, working in sawmills and running chainsaws and everything else, my hearing isn't that great. But Tyler, my camera guy, says, hey, I heard a bugle down there. And sure enough, we go down to where he heard this bugle and we run into these elk. And our day went from being down in the dumps because of what happened the day before to being one of those days where you say, gosh, can you believe that? How lucky was that? So anyhow, folks, I hope you'll tune in. And one of the other things we're going to be doing on YouTube, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you see we're putting lots of content out there every week. We've got a series about the public land transfer idea of getting rid of all of our public lands, selling it, or they say transfer to the states. It's really a way to sell it. We've got the Elk Talk series with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. All of our old On Your Own episodes are there. All of our Fresh Tracks episodes are there. And now this elk hunt that you're going to see on Monday is the first hunt that is really an experiment for YouTube, and we've got another experiment coming up later in the year because we want to see how this works. The theory is, in today's world, a lot of you are not watching TV, so we can't just count on TV. We have to have content available to you on YouTube, on Facebook, on our Hunt Talk forum, all these places. So I hope you'll share this YouTube stuff with any of your hunting friends. It's really important for us that we find out how well received this is. I hope it's super well received. But with that, I'm going to cut the Facebook Live piece now, and I'm maybe going to continue on with a little podcast activity. But before I do, a couple people said, what about that elk that you see? It looks like I'm wearing antlers, doesn't it? See that elk right there above me? My son shot that. He was 15. The Missouri River Breaks in Montana is like this great elk hunting place. And he's like, you know, Dad, I think I'll apply up in the breaks this year. First year he applies, he draws a tag. There's like 55 tags and, I don't know, 4,000 applicants, and he draws it. And that's his bull right over my head here. All of my bulls are out in the shop. My wife's theory is, you know what? In your family, that might be art, but in my family, those are dead animals. Get them out of here. But if her son shoots something, you know, gosh, how he gets anything he wants. So I'm going to show you what the rest of the Randy room looks like. You will understand my pronghorn problem that I have. There's Marcus. He's trying to hide behind the camera there. And up here, you'll see that I've got all these other pronghorn. And over here, I've got a whitetail problem at times too. You'll see there's a mule deer right there from Colorado. There's a Montana whitetail. And then there's that bull elk. But anyhow, I'm sure the folks on the podcast who can't see the video side of this are saying, what in the hell is Newberg doing right now? I'm trying to interact with a Facebook Live group is what I'm doing, folks. So, and it appears as though I'm not doing a very good job of either. The Facebook Live seems to be falling apart as I'm wiggling the camera. I'm getting distracted. I probably lost my audio on my podcast. It says we're still running on the podcast, but some of you, I'm sure, are wondering, why does Randy wear a vest in June? Because I'm mic'd up today. I've got audio to the left of me, audio to the right of me, and a vest is a really great thing. I can put a receiver in each pocket or a transmitter in each pocket and be all mic'd up and ready to go. So anyhow, folks, we're going to cut the Facebook Live here. Really appreciate all you tuning in, and I hope that you will share or watch the episode on YouTube, the Randy Newberg Hunter YouTube channel on Monday. It'll be ready at 7 o'clock. You can watch it from, well, anytime after 7 o'clock on Monday. And please share with your friends. I hope you will, and really appreciate you tuning in tonight. Thanks. Ending live video. All right. So anyhow, folks, that's it says we went live on Facebook for an hour and 8 minutes. There were so many questions, there's no way I could keep up with them all. And I'm thinking that we might just throw this up there on our Hunt Talk Radio podcast just to see what people think of it. It feels really distracted, and I hope I get better at it over time. It's hard to stand here, monitor the audio down there, try to look into the camera there, look at the computer screen of questions, come in here, look at the cell phone with the Facebook feed. So, anyhow, all of you who listen to the podcast, all of you who watch on the YouTube channel, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. The podcast has just turned into this big animal. If you would have told me that anybody wanted to watch Randy Newberg, or not watch, listen to Randy Newberg sit and talk with his hunting buddies, I'd have said, you're crazy. These people aren't going to want anything to do with that. But every time we load up a new podcast, it gets tens of thousands and thousands of downloads. So thanks for listening to it. And out on our Hunt Talk forum, we pick a lot of our topics, and a lot of our guests come from the Hunt Talk forum. There's a full segment out there, a part of the forum that says podcast topics. We go and we read that regularly. We're always looking to see what the audience wants out of that, and it's just super, super helpful. So anyhow, folks, I think we're going to shut this down for both the remaining video and the remaining audio, and can't thank you enough for tuning in. And it won't be long, and we'll be having another conversation, and hopefully you give us some good ideas of things you want to hear. Thanks so much for listening.